Let's talk about the things that you think you know. You may have heard about the Iron Maiden, but they didn't actually exist. Fortune cookies are not actually Chinese, but rather was brought by the Japanese, and in China, it was seen as American cuisine. The historical Buddha was not fat, Napoleon was not short, Albert Einstein didn't fail mathematics at school, Twinkies don't last for decades, which is obvious. You say you know something like the back of your hand, but do you really? I know you know it better than AI, that's for sure, at least at the moment of writing this. Ugh. Those are stuff for nightmares. And many of the famous quotes that you've heard are actually often misattributed to famous figures that never said them. It turns out we believe a lot about things that are not true, and we don't know a lot about the things in the world. Why? I don't know. Maybe whenever we ask about something as a kid, our parents just say whatever they think is true just to shut us up because you know how kids are. They ask a lot of questions. Maybe it's because schools don't teach you to question a lot because the teacher is busy finishing the syllabus. According to Susan Angel, the frequency of questioning drops like a stone after children start school. Let's say you're trying to learn about the weather in school. The teacher would provide you with pictures and diagrams about clouds and lightning. Outside the classroom, however, you look at the sky and you see that the clouds are getting thicker and darker. And then you point that out to your teacher and she said, "Please focus, we are learning what the textbook says." It's an oversimplification, but you get the idea. And now, in your adult years, we spend our time watching Kurzgesagt, learning about the things you might have wondered as a kid, like how black holes work, which is a very typical thing that a child would ask. Because of that, we end up with a lot of things that we think we know, but on close inspection, we know very little about. How many layers of our skin are there? How do our wounds heal? How does the computer work? Why do we have language, and why does it keep changing over time that it's hard to comprehend the language of the past? If you flap your arms, will it become a chain reaction that would somehow save other people's lives from a car crash in other countries like the butterfly effect? There are a lot of things that we don't really know about in detail. Maybe it's time to relearn back about the things that you have a general basic knowledge as a kid. People live in the same world but have different beliefs. It's like we're on a different plane of reality. Because why not? They believe that the earth is flat, which is true by the way. The earth is really flat. They believe that lizard people roam the earth, which is also true. Okay, kidding. I guess that's why something has to be standardized, so that other schools of thought that are harmful can be put to a stop. I believe there's knowledge that is harmful, and I don't know what we should do with it, but we have to be careful. That's what schools should do. To teach things that matter, to teach the correct way to think, to cultivate the right type of curiosity. When I was a kid, I thought we had figured out a lot of things. I know there are things that are downright impossible at the time, but I thought we already had a lot of things discovered. But the reality is, we don't know a lot. We do a lot of things that are bad. We manage our waste horrifically. The Industrial Revolution and the rapid growth of civilization that we humans are very proud of, and I can't deny are very cool, came with unintended consequences. We changed the way river works so that big ships can sail through. That in turn makes flooding a very common occurrence. What keeps me faithful is that some of us are just brilliant. Take the Dutch, they built dikes, changed back the way rivers are supposed to work, and instead of removing water as fast as possible from the land, they let it stay and retain on land longer. It prevented floods during the wet season, and during the dry season, it kept rivers flowing because the water was absorbed by the land and it keeps the water table high. It's amazing. They realized that the things they used to believe in didn't work, and they're changing their beliefs to the things that do work. However, many parts of the world still believe in things that are not true. People believe in superstitions. In Korea, they believe that fans can cause death. In India, they believe that you can get pregnant with dogs after being bitten by one, and this applies to men too. In North America, some people believe in fortune cookies or bad luck with spilled salt and the number 13. Some people on the internet also believe in the chain letter that they're reading in the comment sections, and my younger self was guilty of this. I didn't believe that I would get bad luck if I didn't copy it, but still, the fear was still there, lurking at the back of my mind. But guess what? I'm still here. My parents are still here. Comment, you're wrong. You didn't have any power over my life. Okay. On a personal level, you can question your beliefs and try to check about the things you never really question. Apparently, we humans are not born with an innate understanding of the world around us. Babies under 6 months old, for instance, believe that you vanish out of existence when you play peekaboo. This is called object permanence, and you learn that as a baby. Those are something we probably don't have a problem grasping. But what about other things that require some work to understand? Do you know anything about trees? Do you know why they're like that? do you know why your mom acts a certain way. Maybe you realize that your parents are just people trying to make sense of the world, that they're not perfect. Maybe you put too many expectations on your parents, and you've acknowledged that the word mom or mother connotates perfection, at least to me. But your parents are just people who get older with time, and that doesn't mean that wisdom is guaranteed with time. They may still hold ridiculous beliefs that they once held as a kid. Some adults live in an alternate reality, thinking that the world is owned by lizard people. It's extreme enough that it pushed people to even commit murder on their own families. These people are adults. They're not perfect. They don't know everything, and they don't know what they're supposed to do. Sometimes, a child can do better things than us adults, and it's embarrassing to admit, but it's just what life is. We often put too much emphasis on age, that we often forget that substance is much more precious than appearance. Maybe you don't even know yourself as well as you thought. In one of the books written by one of my favorite writers, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, it follows Rodion Raskolnikov, an extremely poor former law student who sees himself as superior to society. He cannot relate to anyone, and he puts himself above the moral rules that govern humanity, and that belief isolates himself from society. He sees other people as tools and only means to an end. He was fascinated by ruthlessness and power, and he felt like the world is not fair. How is it fair that there's this mean old lady, an exploitative pawnbroker who has more money than him, who is attractive, intelligent, and profound, that is starving? After selling the last of his valuables to the old pawnbroker, he decided to kill her to get the money. With the money, he could liberate himself from poverty and carry on to carry out good deeds. He believes that killing her would benefit society, since he's convinced that some crimes are justifiable if they're committed to removing the hurdles that are in the way to the higher goals of extraordinary men. So, he went to her house and killed the pawnbroker. But her handicapped and innocent half-sister walked in, and he had to kill her too. But to his horror, he found himself racked with paranoia, confusion, and disgust. Realizing how horrible the thing that he has done, all his theoretical justifications lose their power. Essentially, he realized that he didn't know himself as well as he thought. The murder results from his belief that he is superior, and he wants to establish the truth about his superiority. However, the feeling of guilt proves that he isn't what he thinks he is, and he failed to live up to the person he envisioned himself to be. He couldn't accept the deconstruction of this identity, and continues to resist the idea that he is mediocre as the rest of society, by saying that somehow the murder was justified. However, in surrendering, he found joy and an escape from the conception of himself as someone who is better than anyone else, and the isolation that those beliefs brought to him. Raskolnikov is also a nihilist, which is a person that believes life is meaningless and rejects all religious and moral principles. In the 1850s and 1860s Russia, nihilism is closely related to utilitarianism, the idea that moral decisions should be made on outcomes that create the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. So, if you kill the useless old moneylender, you can alleviate human misery, and the crime is justified. He even idolizes the Napoleonic character that believes that in the interest of a higher social good, you possess the moral right to kill. However, at the end of the novel, he discovered love, and he throws off his nihilism. So, in a way, Dostoevsky condemns nihilism as empty. Dostoevsky showed us that we think we know ourselves better than we do. Your parents may give you a fixed identity, the clumsy one, the bad one, the clever one. As a result, you may think that you're dirty, unlovable, or a burden. To cope with the emotional pain, you may develop a coping mechanism. But this way of responding makes you think it's a core part of your identity too. And there's a high chance that it is not true. You may think that you're a nihilist, that everything is meaningless, and that the person is just an object with a brain that somehow thinks he's conscious. But then you fall in love, and now everything starts to have meaning. And a person is suddenly not a mere object, and you start giving meaning in every interaction that they do. You think you're cold-hearted, emotionless, and rational, but you're actually quite sensitive, emotional, and irrational. The simple theoretical version of yourself in your mind is often falsified and proven false by the more complex and convoluted reality. It got me thinking about other things too. Do you really know your parents, your friends, and the people that are close to you? To truly know something is a hard thing to do. We will probably never know about certain things. So, what do we do about this situation? Well, if you want to know about yourself more, I think a lot of people would say that you should journal your thoughts, let yourself grow by changing your environment, and try to understand your emotions. If you want to know the general truth about life or the universe, well, I don't know. Maybe you can use the scientific method or philosophical reasoning or whatever. I don't even know how to end this video. But one thing I know is that we have to start asking questions like the little kid that we used to be. I think that would be a very good start. Thank you.